Hello, Hot Mess historians. Let's talk about Catherine Howard, Henry VIII's fifth wife. Catherine Howard was the first cousin of Anne Boleyn, but the story only gets worse from there. Catherine grew up in sort of a poor family. Her father was the second son, so he was always struggling with earning money. And so as a result of that, Catherine was sent to live with her grandmother, the Dowager Duchess of Norfolk. Now, while she was living with her grandmother, she had a bit of an unconventional lifestyle. She actually lived in sort of like a dormitory that was filled and crowded with other young girls. She didn't have much in the way of education, and she was left mostly to her own devices, being undisciplined. In addition to the unconventional living arrangement that she had and being left to her own devices, Catherine was given an early education into the more intimate aspects of life. She's been described as being neither beautiful nor intelligent, but she was exceedingly charming and flirtatious. Due to her powerful family name, Catherine was able to secure a position as a lady-in-waiting to King Henry's fourth wife and fourth queen, Anne of Cleves. It's while she's working in Anne of Cleves' household that she catches the eye of the king. Henry and Catherine were married on July 28th, just 21 days after the marriage between Henry and Anne of Cleves had been annulled. Henry was 49 years old, and Catherine was just a teenager. Ugh. Catherine's family were not the only ones that knew of her immaturity, of her childhood, and of her intimate knowledge in the past. Gossips around court it was just going like wildfire, but nobody mentioned it to Henry. They wouldn't dare. He's very sensitive. Talking about Catherine's history, in about 1538, she fell in love with a man named Francis Dereham. Francis Dereham was a guard that was serving her grandmother when she lived there. They quickly developed a physical, intimate love affair and treated one another as husband and wife. In fact, they are known as referring to one another during this time period as husband and wife. Dereham would actually allow her the opportunity to perform wifely duties. Don't get crazy. That really meant more managing his money while he was away. And the Dowager Duchess, she didn't know anything about it. When she found out about it, she put a stop to it. She's like, nope, this isn't happening anymore. She ships Dereham off to Ireland, and he leaves with the understanding that when he returns, he and Catherine will be married legally. Catherine, she's under no such understanding. She moves on very quickly, developing her next crush and then ultimately marrying the king. After her marriage to Henry, Dereham had returned from Ireland, and Catherine decided that she was going to hire him as her personal secretary. That's a pretty ballsy move. Now, as we know, Henry's getting up there in age, and as he's aging, he's developing even more physical ailments and illnesses. And in 1541, he develops a serious fever. And Henry, in his love for Catherine, sent her away for her own safety. He did not want her to get sick. While Catherine is away, because her husband is potentially deathly ill, she begins a love affair with a man named Thomas Culpeper. Thomas Culpeper was a member of the king's household. Just like Catherine was a ladies-in-waiting for Anne of Cleves, Thomas Culpeper is kind of that equivalent for Henry. Now, once the king recovered from his fever, they go out on what's called royal progress. Royal progress is when the monarch and the court travel throughout the country so that they can be seen by the other subjects in the country, not just those that live in London where the king primarily resides. And this gives them the opportunity to see the king or the monarch, and the opportunity for the monarch to lay eyes on really what's going on throughout the rest of the country. As they're going on this progress, Catherine keeps both Dereham and Culpeper very close to her. The rumor mill is just blazing. King has no idea. He's completely oblivious, but she is not being subtle at all. I really don't understand how he couldn't see it, but when progress concludes, the court settles at Hampton Court Palace. And it's while they're there that one of Catherine's old roommates, brother, decides enough is enough. She's kind of making a fool of the king, and he's going to find out, and somebody needs to tell him, because if we all keep it a secret, it's going to be even worse. So he goes to Henry's best friend, Thomas Cranmer, and passes him a letter that has all the dirty details in it. Cranmer looks at it and says, "Oh, this is bad." And he passes the letter to Henry. Now, Henry's initial response is complete denial. He can't believe that she would do this. He truly was infatuated with her. But he decides to err on the side of caution and asks Cranmer to investigate discreetly into the validity of what is being accused of her in this letter. The letter was passed to Henry on November 2nd, and the discreet investigation, it didn't take all that long. All within the next just couple of days, several of Catherine's ladies-in-waiting, her maids, are arrested and sent to the Tower, and so is Francis Dereham, and he is tortured. And during his torture, he provides Cranmer with the name of Thomas Culpeper. And Thomas Culpeper is then arrested, sent to the Tower, tortured, and confesses to his relationship and affair with Queen Catherine. Catherine was then arrested on November 12th, and really any pleas for mercy just fell on deaf ears. There's no way Henry is going to show her any mercy. So Cranmer takes pity on Catherine. He knows that she's young and it just really has been so ill-equipped for this life that she has been needing to lead. And he's interrogating her and he's trying to get her to confess to being betrothed to Francis Dereham in her earlier childhood. Remember when Grandma found out, she sent him off to Ireland and he had the understanding that they were going to be married? Cranmer figures if she admits that they were pre-contracted or engaged to be married, then just like Anne of Cleves declared for their annulment, that she would not be eligible to wed Henry, and then everything can just be forgotten. She didn't commit adultery because they were never married, and then she could save her own life. Now, Catherine is young, immature, and does not understand the gift that she is being given. And she refuses to acknowledge that she was engaged to Francis because she thinks that that would be worse than the infidelity, even though her first cousin has been executed for infidelity. Catherine was formally indicted on November 24th for abominable, base, carnal, voluptuous, and vicious life. Those are some charges. Dereham was not only sentenced to death, but on December 10th, he was hung, drawn, and quartered, which is an execution reserved for traitors. Ironically, Culpeper was executed the same day, but he was given a more merciful death by beheading. After their executions, their heads were fixed on spears and displayed on the top of the London Bridge. It said that they were displayed up there for 5 years. On February 10th, 1542, Catherine was taken out from under house arrest where she had been since her initial arrest on November 24th, and was taken to the Tower. She had but one request. She wanted the block that was going to be used in her execution brought to her chambers so that she might know how to place herself. She wanted to practice her own execution so she wouldn't mess up. Now, on the morning of February 13th, Catherine is executed by beheading. In my research for this particular topic, I came across a pretty simple but impactful statement about Catherine. She bore no children and made no lasting impression upon those who knew her, but it should be remembered that she was 30 years younger than her husband, a silly young girl who never understood the dangers of royal regard.